let's talk about a couple of the stories. You probably hear a lot of them. I mean, I see some of those that you share, but for every one you share, you probably have 10
Yeah.
that you don't share. What's standing out to you as some themes, and maybe share a story of something that kind of illustrates how things are going?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's really important to talk about those stories. I'll start with that maybe are kids that are struggling, but they don't maybe necessarily have a diagnosis, right? We get a lot of kids whose parents are saying, yeah, my kid doesn't really have a, diagnosed disability, but they don't want to go to school. Or they're so depressed, I can't get them out of bed, or something along those lines where the traditional environment just isn't working. And before Universal ESA, I had to say, I'm sorry, your kid doesn't qualify. Are you sure they don't have ADHD? Are you sure they don't have dyslexia? Are you sure they might not be on the spectrum and we can get them evaluated? So there were all these kids, even kids that are being bullied, that I didn't have a choice for. If you were wealthy, you had a choice. You could go send them to a public school or maybe try another district or charter school.
A private school.
Yeah, I didn't have a open enroll to a charter school maybe, but I didn't have an option for them. And so now because of these universal programs, I can say it doesn't matter what's going on with your kid. Where do you want them to go? What do you want them to do? And we had a very sweet family whose child had a pretty significant emotional disability. I alluded to some of it earlier, just wasn't able to get out of bed, wasn't able to function, some really deep stuff. And it's because of an ESA that this child, through consulting with the doctor, was able to get into a one-on-one education environment, if you can imagine that, with an empowerment scholarship. And she may not need to be in that environment forever as a teenager. The hope is that she probably wouldn't be, right? But the parents who didn't have money to pay for that were able to take the ESA, do the one-on-one school here in Arizona, and I think they have 2 locations now, and essentially help get this child to a place where they are a functioning and healthy teenager that now is going to have an opportunity at a future, whereas who knows where that child would be if they'd been stuck in their own environment. So we have so many families like that we help. The bullying one is a big one too. We weren't able to get kids out if they were experiencing significant bullying with our ESA guidelines before Universal.
Oh, really?
We just would have to keep popping them around to different places. And sometimes because of their needs or their neurodiversities, they were going to encounter the same problems at another school. And so I think we're just seeing a lot of kids be saved in their education because of that flexibility. Just another story too. Dyslexia is very common, reading disabilities. 1 in 5 kids has a learning disability in reading. I think because of some incredible podcasts like Sold a Story, which a lot of us have probably heard, and it's just totally rocked the education world in the last 2 years, we're realizing how poorly a lot of our kids are being educated and taught how to read. And so we would see battle after battle after battle, sometimes where we felt like it was almost too late, where a parent was coming to us and saying, my kid's in 4th grade, my kid's in 5th grade, and they're still not reading, or they can't even write a paragraph, or look at their handwriting. And a lot of kids maybe even that didn't have dyslexia but had some sort of learning disability in reading, and we just could not get them the services that they needed at that age to remediate.
And that's when you need it.
That's when you need it to remediate that dyslexia, because it's a lot. You need these methods that are sometimes 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week to get these kids caught up. And it's really hard for the district schools to provide that, even though they should. And so a lot of these kids, we're getting now help with school choice and with ESAs because they're able to pay for private programs. We did this with our kids. They're able to pay for these private programs at a Dyslexia Pros or an Arcadia Literacy or any of these.
Those are getting better too.
And they're getting better too. Yeah, so it's really exciting to be able to help these kids that sometimes just kept getting passed through because maybe their disability, you couldn't see it, but now we're able to help those kids.
No, that's great. Yeah, we have a neighborhood boy who has autism. You've probably heard a lot of autism stories, and his family was just so frustrated. They're not super wealthy. They're not poor by any means, good upper middle class probably. And they had means to move around, and they tried district systems and charter systems, and they were just so frustrated because they didn't see progress, and these are real caring parents. And anyways, with ESAs, they love it. They feel like they've finally found a solution for their boy. He's 12 years old, and I think he's getting one-on-one different speech services, and he kind of gets into a loop. And so he'll talk and he'll say this, he'll hear somebody say something, and then he'll say it over and over and over at an increasing volume. But in his mind, he knows that he can't stop it. And he knows he might be disrupting something. So the other day in a little church meeting, this boy, we knew he was being taught to use a little letterboard. And that's part of his ESA, his therapy. And in church, he was acting out a little bit, and his parents, and we tried to help him, calm down a little bit. But on his letterboard, he pulled out and he tapped the words, "I'm sorry." And he wouldn't have known how to express himself in a traditional district or charter system because they just didn't have the tools or the resources to get that specific. But now with his ESA, he does.
Yeah.
And now he can actually communicate, even though he's appearing very disruptive. And I could tell you other stories of things that are just happening that he now can actually communicate in a substantive way like that.
Well, in this example, and we do have a lot of the autism stories. I mean, it's important for listeners to know now, according to SARC, which is an incredible organization in Arizona, nationally recognized Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center, 1 in 55 boys have an autism diagnosis now.
Really, that many?
Yeah. And I really appreciate their research, and now we can identify really early. So regardless of why that is, these innovative school choice programs are often the key for these families to unlocking the toolbox of services that they need. And I love the letterboard example because obviously I have a lot of dear friends very close to me that have children with autism. It kind of happens in this space that, you get drawn to people that want to help you with these things, and they are able to try all of the new things, all of the innovative stuff. If someone publishes a research report and some therapy place opens that starts saying, "We want to teach you guys how to do this new letterboard innovative therapy," the parent can sign up tomorrow with an ESA. That is not the case when you're talking about services in a traditional school environment for a variety of reasons. So ESAs allow parents to keep up with the speed of innovation in the free market space to actually get interventions faster for their kids. And that's where it's really beautiful to see that the people that are supporting these innovative ESA programs and school choice programs across the country, there's very broad support for them. I think that we forget that. I think that we tend to think this is a very, an issue that's really aligned with political parties, but it doesn't have to be. Because I know with the families that we're supporting in our nonprofit capacity, they span all economic backgrounds, they span all political parties and spectrums, because these issues that children are dealing with, they don't discriminate based on your income.
And it's usually the most disadvantaged that benefit.
That's exactly right. Or those families are the ones that are least likely to have the extra money for services, but now on an ESA, it's the opposite. One story that really comes to mind to kind of wrap that up is during COVID, and kind of it was the start of 2021 when Love Your School was still very new. I had received a phone call from a mom. It was a refugee family in Arizona. And essentially they were like, "We can't explain everything that's going on over the phone, but we want to get on to the empowerment scholarship. Our daughter qualifies because she has traumatic brain injury and she's non-speaking. And we just need you to come to the house. We need you to help us sign up for the program. We need you to see her. We need to help you coordinate with the services that she's also getting from the state, which is DDD, Department of Developmental Disabilities." And when I got there, this mom told me that her child, who is non-speaking, was, in order to be marked present, was being required to get on for at least 2 hours a day. And the mom said she just kept it running, the computer running, onto a laptop for her district school in order to continue to receive the other services that the child needed. And you just look at that and she's like, we just can't do that anymore. And so the therapist that had been working with the family said, "You got to get her on an empowerment scholarship, because then we can coordinate all these service providers to come to your home." and to get her the services that she needs. And it's just really crazy until you're seeing that stuff up front. You hear the stories, but then you see it up front. I saw it up front. I had a meal with this family and we were able to get them on an ESA, and it's just, you love those stories because they're real and they're happening.
Well, and you talk about innovation. Innovation needs resources, right? People aren't there. I think we have enough intelligence to come up with great innovations, but it's kind of like the quandary of drug companies, right? Drug companies will really go towards where there's money, right? And so you just pray that you don't have a diagnosis that isn't popular, right? Because they're not going to be spending a lot of time in their labs trying to help you because there's not a lot of people in with your type of diagnosis. Mm-hmm. But ESAs kind of breaks that a little bit.
It does.
And they allow parents to flow some money into these innovative companies. Are they all going to pan out and be perfect? No, but a lot of them will. And a lot of them will be making breakthroughs that traditional districts or charters don't have the resources, to go innovate, and at least for those particular children. So that's a derivative benefit I think our state is really going to see.
Yeah, no, I have a great example of that. We were being critiqued in the school choice world recently about, parents on the empowerment scholarship being able to purchase things like Fitbits or even Apple Watches with their ESA. And I did a long thread on my Twitter about a watch that we purchased for one of my kiddos 4 years ago with an ESA. And I said, there's a watch called Mightier. That's what it's called. You can look it up. And it was designed out of Harvard and essentially was a watch to help kids that had different diagnoses or maybe no diagnosis yet learn to regulate their heart rate and their emotions so that they can function. And I thought, one of my kiddos would really benefit from this, but it was brand new watch. I can't even remember how much we paid for it. I can't even remember. And you pay monthly too, so they can access these games. And it's like a heart rate monitor. So they're learning through this biofeedback type thing, how to lower their heart rate when they're getting overwhelmed. And ESA parents are the ones, we're almost like our own little venture capital firm.
Yeah.
Where
in some ways.
We utilize those things. We've got a huge Facebook group, thousands of parents. And one parent says, I just found this Mightier watch and it's really helping my kid. I want everyone here to know about it. Now all of a sudden you got 50 parents, 100 parents going and making those purchases. One time I even talked to a company that had a product that was sold out and I said, when are you going to get this back in? The lady said, I have no idea. We just got 200 orders from Arizona and we can't figure out why. And I said to the lady, I can tell you why. Because someone posted about your company and how amazing it was for their kid in our ESA Families Facebook group. And we all were like, we are so glad we know about this. We want to try it. And we went and purchased the product. And she said, that is so good to know. And that was years ago. So it's really neat because the full circle moment of that, which I shared on this Twitter thread, is that, people were critiquing ESA parents for these Fitbits and other purchases. But now that watch is being used in public school systems, the Mightier watch. So we were the innovators. We spent our dollars to get this. And now it got big enough to where public schools are benefiting from it too, which is really cool.
Anything you want to add here?
I just love the stories. I have a friend who shared that his daughter recently just like a sudden onset of terrible, debilitating anxiety. And she can't even 3 out of 5, school days, she can't even get herself out. Anxiety is so overwhelming. And so there's all this lost instructional time. And so while they're working on why and resolving and therapy, she's not getting the proper education. And what do they hold her back a year in high school? So it's good to know that families are able to find, maybe it's just a semester, that they are able to kind of help them, whatever that looks like. They have choices to be able to get them the instruction they need until they can sort of work through if it's a temporary or maybe it's a long-term thing.
Well, and just, I really want to encourage parents too, that it's okay to think outside the box, especially if you're dealing with some sort of very difficult situation for one of your children based on trauma or some other type of thing. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to do some unschooling. It's okay to pursue your child's passion passions wherever they lead, they're going to be okay. And I really first found that freedom from a therapist who was helping us with the dyslexia piece for one of our kiddos. I said, I read all this information and it said that we're not supposed to make our child do any reading, like reading on their own, until they hit this certain level of this dyslexia remediation therapy. Isn't that kind of crazy? Like, what's going to happen? And they were like, Jenny, no, get an Audible subscription, which we did, paid for with an ESA, and start saying to your kiddo, I want you to pursue your interests wherever they may lead. Yes, you're going to listen on audio to some of your school related things, but download any audiobook you want on here and start pursuing your passion. My son today, he still talks about it, says that was one of the best times for him because he was able to learn so much by just pursuing his passion on Audible. And he remembers and has taught me so many things. I'll say sometimes, where did you learn that? Or where did that come from? He's like, oh, remember I listened to that one audiobook about early medical inventions and,
wow.
Whatever. And so like, it's okay to pause and help your kids get healthy.
It's a good reminder.
That's great. When we think of the American classroom, we really think of what's preparing the future. The future of our country is sitting in the American classroom. And the classroom doesn't necessarily have four walls anymore, right? There's so much you can learn within that classroom, and there's so much outside of it. And I think ESAs really helps us open the mind, and credit to you, Jenny, and so many in the I Love Your Schools movement and everything that you're doing to help people open their minds. Don't be afraid of innovation. Don't be afraid of freedom. That's effectively what we're saying here. Credit Governor Ducey for signing that. That took a lot of bravery for the legislature and a governor to be the first in the nation to do that. It was definitely a big team effort on that. And for those that get worried or scared of the narratives, make sure you're hearing all the arguments and talking to people that are actually using them, not the vested interests that are being challenged by ESAs. Make sure we get educated. So anyways,
do you want to share where our audience can find Love Your School?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are online, loveyourschool.org. Right now, we offer parent support concierge services. So right when you come to our website, it says, is your child struggling? Do you need help? And that's what we're there for. All of the services that we offer to families in guiding them towards their parental rights, school choice options, applying for scholarships are all free of charge. We operate in Arizona and West Virginia, and we're going to be launching into a third state in 2025. So stay tuned.
Okay.
But you can find us online, and we're also on Twitter and Instagram at Love Your School AZ.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for being
Jenny.
with us today.
Thank you.
And if those of you that like what you heard, please like and share this great episode with those that want to learn more about ESAs or the American classroom. And thanks for spending your most valuable possession with us today, your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.